Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Moose is joining me today, or not, for my August reading wrap up. I'm going to be going over all of the highs and lows of August, my favorite reads, my least favorite reads, and let me just say, August redeemed the whole summer. June and July were such low months for me for reading, both in quality and just overall enjoyment of my reading. August knocked it out of the park. I had an average of a 4.08 star in August. That's insane. That is such a good average rating. That just shows that I was reading so many books that I loved, and I really felt a lot of joy with my reading in August, which is always a good sign for me. I read a mix of genres in August, and I'll kind of go through them as I hit on the books, but this was a really big nonfiction month for me. I read 3 nonfictions, which is a pretty big jump for someone who didn't really read nonfiction up until like last year. And one of these nonfictions is probably one of my favorite books of the year. It was fascinating. I continued some series that I'm really enjoying, and I picked up a decent amount of romantasy, which is not typically one of my highest read genres. They were book club picks, and I ended up enjoying most of them. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual wrap up. I'm going to start with my nonfictions, then mention the one DNF I had this month, and then I'll go from least favorite to favorite reads. Also, yes, I am coming clean as a fan of one of the worst football teams, but maybe this year's our year with our like 400 quarterbacks. I had 3 nonfiction reads this month, so I'm going to go through them from least favorite to most favorite, but honestly, I loved all of them. My first nonfiction read for the month, coming in at 4 stars, was Slow Days, Fast Company by Eve Babitz. So this is a collection of essays written by Babitz that just detail different events over her life living in California. And let me tell you, this is the perfect hot girl summer read. If you're looking to get into nonfiction and you love a good book about just like being kind of messy in your 20s, and learning a lot, I think this is a really great read. Eve Babitz is really reflective, and she paints a really beautiful picture of California in this time and place. I felt really transported, and I can't really say too much because it's super short. Each essay kind of stands on its own, even if there's interconnected themes. But I saw a video that said Eve was doing the right amount of drugs, her boyfriend was the right amount of gay, and she was just having the right amount of fun in the 70s in California. So if I find that little video, I'll link it because I think that's the perfect pitch for this book. My next nonfiction read, if I had to give a rating, would probably give a 4.75 just because I didn't have that 5-star feeling, but this is a really phenomenal memoir, and that is The Red Parts by Maggie Nelson. So The Red Parts follows the trial for the murder case of Maggie Nelson's aunt, Jane. She has another piece of work called Jane that she had written about her aunt and it being an unsolved murder. And then The Red Parts follows post-publication of Jane and dealing with the trial and the aftermath and the solving of the case. So a lot of this book is details of the trial and what led to this case being reopened. But Maggie Nelson also takes a lot of really personal reflections, both on her aunt as a person, on girlhood, and on true crime and kind of the right to a narrative. She has a really just interesting place in this story because Maggie never met her aunt. The murder occurred before Maggie was ever born, but she still grew up in the shadow of that happening, and she grew up witnessing what something like that did to her mother, to her grandparents, how that impacted how she and her sister were raised. And so I think it still takes a look at how crime and how these traumatic events can trickle over into other areas. But yeah, The Red Parts was a really great read, and I definitely want to read more Maggie Nelson. My final nonfiction read for the month, I can say with full confidence, is going to be one of my top reads of the year. Like, I'm talking potentially like top 5. And I'm hoping to read close to 150 books. So top 5 is a pretty prestigious place to land, but that is Hidden Valley Road. So Hidden Valley Road is a nonfiction book that follows the lives of the Galvin family. They were a pretty unique case where they had 12 children 10 of them were boys, and of the 10, 6 were diagnosed with schizophrenia. And this happened kind of between the years of 45 to 65. I'm checking my synopsis for refreshers on exact details. They ended up becoming a really important family in terms of what we know about schizophrenia today. I don't want to give a lot of the hot button information because I think people should pick this up and read it. But a lot of what we know about schizophrenia from a genetic standpoint, we learned from this family because we were able to look at sets of genes from the same parents 12 times, 6 of those cases having schizophrenia, and seeing what lined up and getting into the really nitty gritty as just research and technology expanded. Something I really appreciated about this book is I never felt like it was sensationalizing or glorifying schizophrenia and kind of pointing the finger of oh, look at that, look at this thing that they did because they have schizophrenia. It felt very objective and mindful of what this disease is and what it does to individuals as well as what it does to families and how the people around them can be harmed by this disease as well. It's a really tough story. There's just a lot of really hard things that went on in this family. Can I just say, to get on a little mini soapbox, misogyny is the detriment of growth for so many things. Multiple instances of this book where they were like, well, they just never decided to research this thing because they chalked it up to those crazy mothers, those crazy overbearing mothers. It's all the mom's fault because they're just stupid moms. And so then they just didn't have sufficient research on causes or symptoms or treatment because they were like, it's just those silly little ladies. Another thing that I appreciated about the formatting of this book is you would get a lot of anecdotal stories about the family, more of that qualitative side to the data and learning about them and their backgrounds. And then it would be mirrored in that same chapter or same section with kind of where the field was at the time or where the research was at the time. Overall, I felt like this book was done very mindfully. I think something really important when you're dealing with diagnoses that have a psychosis element is to be really mindful and considerate and not feel like you're sensationalizing things or pointing the finger and laughing or blowing things up for drama or, to be buzzy and sell more books. And I thought that this book did a great job of being very objective of this is what happened and this is how it impacted the individual and the family. It was phenomenally written, phenomenally researched. I would read it again. Fantastic read. I listened to this on audiobook. I could have had a 48-hour audiobook and wanted more. It was so interesting and so well done. So 100% recommend Hidden Valley Road. Okay, up next, I'm going to talk about all of my fiction reads for the month. So starting on kind of a womp womp, I'm going to start with the DNF. So I did DNF, Road of Bones by Demi Winters. This was a book club pick for a book club I'm a part of, and I was looking forward to reading it. I had it on, kind of on my radar for a little bit. And something about the plot, I couldn't get a grip on it. I wasn't drawn to the story. It was long, and I was already in the middle of a lot of other longer books. And so I just wasn't wanting to finish it. So I gave up. Some of my friends in the book club that did finish it, kind of the consensus was from book club was it was between a 3 and a 4 star. It had some elements they did like, some elements they didn't like. I think most of them are going to pick up the sequel, so don't count it out just because I gave it a DNF. But yeah, it wasn't for me. Okay, moving on to my least favorite read of the month. Something that is a bucket list of mine is I want to read all of the Hercule Poirot books by Agatha Christie. And this month I read number 12, which excited to reach that number. That means I'm about a third of the way done, which is crazy. However, I thought this one was bad. I didn't like it. I just felt like I was reading it and I felt like it was so just like, ugh, here, damn. Like it felt like she was like, oh, I guess people want another Poirot book, so I'll write another Poirot book. I just did one on the train, and so I'll do this one on a plane. And it just felt so churned out. My suspicion of who it was from the start ended up being it. It's not a long book, and it felt like so much if it could be scrapped. It really could have been a short story. It just felt low effort, and she wrote 30 some of these things, so there's going to be a few that are just knocked out for cash. And I think this is one of them. And I also felt like we didn't get enough Poirot. It felt like he wasn't in a significant portion of the book. And then he would just pop up and they're like, oh, the guy with the mustache. Right. He's back. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's the titular character. His name, the series is named after him. Anyway, least favorite read of the month was Death in the Clouds by Agatha Christie. Okay, next read was another 2.5. If you watched my What I Read in a Week, you'll recognize this title. And this one was a bummer for me, and that was Evenings and Weekends by Oísin McKenna. So this is kind of a literary contemporary read following a lot of interconnected stories over one weekend during a heat wave in London. My main qualms with this book were just that I went in with certain expectations and I felt like they weren't met. I thought that I was going to get beautiful prose. I felt like I was going to get characters that I really connected to and understood deeply. I thought that the story as a whole was going to give great reflections on life. And I didn't really feel like I got much of that. The writing was really straightforward and it was fine and it propelled the story well, but it didn't feel quotable or beautiful to me. It just felt like writing. The characters were messy and made decisions I didn't understand, but I also felt removed from a degree of them. Like I didn't ever feel like I was truly let inside with some of them. And I just overall felt a little bit disconnected from the story. So other people seem to feel differently than me. So again, just like all of the books I rated low or DNF'd, don't just go off of my recommendation. If you feel like it could be for you, I recommend still checking it out, but this one wasn't for me and then bums me out. And if you want to see a longer rant, you can check out my What I Read in a Week as a 9 to 5 girly video. Anyway, that's Evenings and Weekends. Ugh, just a disappointment. I'll probably still keep it though because I bought the book in Ireland. Okay, next I won't talk too long. I did a reread and I reread Come From Me with Apples and I bumped it down from a 4 to a 3.5. This book is a short little gothic horror-ish, horror novella following our main character who lives the most perfect life in the most perfect gated community with the most perfect husband and the perfect neighbors. And then she discovers one thing and it's like the one thread that unravels the whole garment. And that's all I can really say because it's not very long. Same as I felt the first time where I was like, I liked it, but I felt like a lot of the middle just gets lost and doesn't end up feeling relevant. It feels like we have our inciting incident, and then we have filler, and then we have the ending scene where the inciting incident is resolved and we get all of our answers. And the stuff in the middle doesn't really seem to impact the rest of the story. I found a lot of the descriptions to just be very on the nose, and I'm someone who appreciates more nuance or just chance for the reader to infer more. And I felt like it was just really in your face what the messaging was supposed to be. Come For Me with Apples is fine. I probably won't reread it a third time. So I guess my journey with that book is complete. Okay, and then I picked up just a fun little horror audiobook, another novella, and I just listened to it and I colored on a Sunday afternoon and it was really nice. I gave this one a 3.5 just because I wanted a little bit more from it, but I do think that for what it was, it delivered. And that was Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This is my second Stephen Graham Jones. I read I Was a Teenage Slasher last year. That was my first read from him. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And this one brought that same kind of campy energy. And I just really like his storytelling. Anyway, Night of the Mannequins follows these teens who pull a prank on their friend at the movie theater and put a mannequin in the seats. And then one kid sees the mannequin get up and leave the theater. And he starts to fall under the impression that the mannequin is going to start coming after them, so to say. I thought it was a fun read, definitely a horror read. So if you're squeamish or you don't love some more gruesome details, maybe stay away from this one or check trigger warnings. But if you love just kind of a horror romp, this definitely feels like that. I would have preferred a little bit more of a conclusive ending. Not that I had to get 100% answers, because I'm fine with, again, I'm fine with inference, you know? But I wanted maybe like 15% more clarity. And I think I just wanted to see the mannequin more. I was really sold by the mannequin in the movie theater, and I wanted that to be our setting the whole time. I still liked where the story went, but I think that could have been a different angle to have taken the story that I maybe would have liked even more. If I could change it, a little bit more clarity at the end and like 10% more mannequins. Because that's the other thing. It's called Night of the Mannequins with an S. Unless I have the title wrong. Yeah, Night of the Mannequins, plural. Stephen Graham Jones, you used a plural when there was only a singular. So call out. Should have put more mannequins in your novella, sir. Still peace and love. Anyway, Night of the Mannequins, 3.5. Great read for spooky season. Okay, and then next we're already in 4 stars, and I have 5 more books to talk about. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? I had so many good reads this month. Amazing. So I picked this book up for a book club with my cousins. I had never heard of it, and one of my cousins recommended it, and I ended up really enjoying it. So that book is Servant of Earth, and I gave this 4 stars. It's marketed as a romantasy, but I would argue it leans more towards fantasy. I think because it has a 20-something main character and she's pretty, and there's a really like paper thin romance. That's why it's marketed as romantasy. You could take the romance plot out of the book and the story would remain exactly the same. So I do think it leans more fantasy. The book opens up with our main character, who is a human girl, Kenna, and it's this night that happens once every 5 years or something, and 5 girls are chosen from the village to go and live in the Fae realm. And she doesn't really trust it, but everyone else is like, "Oh, we're so lucky that we get chosen by the Fae." Name one time that's worked out. Like, literally, name one time it's been like so good to be chosen by the Fae as a human. Her best friend gets chosen, so she's like, shit, oh my God. My best friend is literally going to probably just die, but she doesn't think she's going to die because she believes in this. And so she follows her best friend like into the bog where they have to go to meet the Fae, which it's like, okay, the Fae are choosing you to come live with them, and they're like, just walk through the enchanted bog first. Again, name one time that's ended well. She follows her best friend through the bog, and she had discovered this magical dagger, and this magical dagger helps to guide them through the bog, but it only is working for Kenna. Long story short, I won't expose too many details, but Kenna does end up in the Fae realm then for the rest of the book. And it's a really interesting setting because all of the Fae live underground. So I think it has a really cool setting. The magic system, I feel like we really only got some sprinklings of seeing magic in its full force. We're mainly following Kenna and kind of her Fae peers as they undergo the trials in order to gain immortality and come into their full power. So if you like trials, if you like cool magic and unique setting, I think that you could have a lot of fun with this. If I have to be nitpicky, I do think some of the twists or reveals, my cousins and I, we all saw them coming. We all kind of predicted them. I found the romance to be paper thin, but I had a really fun time with it. I thought that it was a great like self-empowerment story, and also kind of a good story of the importance of advocacy and like how in dire situations, like you do need to be willing to take a stance on things. And I thought that that was like, I like being able to see real world themes represented in books and not to just be like, everyone's pretty and beautiful and has swords, but like there's a reflection of life in them. So I highly recommend Servant of Earth. I had a lot of fun. Next, continued another series. We're already on 4.5s, and I have 4 books left. How about that? How about that? 4.5 was A Dangerous Collaboration, book number... Excuse you. Get away from my skeletons. Book number 4 in the Veronica Speedball series. And I had a lot of fun with this one. I really liked the island setting. I really liked the mystery and the characters we were meeting, and just every little nugget we get of Veronica and Stoker. Every little tiny bit that we get of them being interested in each other, I just gobble it up. I will say in this book, their reason for like not being together feels so self-inflicted and like not a real reason. And I get that that's the point, but I'm just eating these books up. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have been like, oh no, I'm never picking those books up. They're not in my wheelhouse. I'm not interested in that. And look at me loving them. So Veronica Speedwell, historical mystery with a bit of romance. Highly recommend. The audiobooks are a lot of fun. I've done a lot of them in tandem. Okay, next one was another book club read. I'm in a lot of book clubs. I have a hard time saying no because I think that they're really fun. However, they kind of limit my autonomy when it comes to my reading, I must say. So you win some, you lose some. But my next book club read, another romantasy, 4.75. Who am I? And it's a romantasy I had never heard of. It only has like 400 some reviews on Goodreads. Let me fact check myself because I could be lying. Okay. It has 500 reviews, 2,600 ratings. So still not like a big romantasy title. That is Priestess. We follow our main character, Edie, who is in her 40s and she's working as a scribe. And through her scribe work, she knows that there's some foreign tensions. So she's out for a reason. In the beginning of the book, she ducks into a church. And these churches are special because they're not like a church like we go to. They're more of like a government building that are more about like community outreach as opposed to like worshiping a specific deity. So she goes into this church, and while she's in this church, a raid starts happening on her city. So a few of her coworkers and then a bunch of other women that they were like on the streets with ran in because they were like, we want to get off the streets because they're like killing people with swords and there's a raid like from this foreign nation. And so they're hiding. But here's the thing, this invading people have some agreement or whatever that they're like, we won't go into civilian homes. We won't go into like private businesses. So if you are on the street or in a government building, all bets are off. Like we can go in and, you know, remember how I said this church is technically a government building? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, they're not actually safe in here. So it's her and like 10 other women. And so what she does, this is where the title comes in. She's like, guys, let's throw these robes on and pretend we're priestesses. So then when these soldiers walk in, they're like, oh, you can't kill us. We're holy ladies. And we're going to pray to our saint to come after you. We're going to pray that she smites you. And they're like, okay, well, we don't really want to be smited. So we'll just kind of take you back with us. So they take them kind of as captives. They don't murder them. But now they're like, well, shoot, now we're going to a foreign nation. We have to pretend that we're priestesses and none of us have a religion. So we just have to make this up as we go along. And then they're also like, we're a bunch of women surrounded by a bunch of male soldiers that just took us as captives. So they don't feel very safe. And I have to say, myself and the other book club ladies were skeptical going into this because we were like, are we about to read a captive captee romance? Because that's not really... I'm not really into that. And so I want to give the preface that this book, while yes, that's how the relationship starts, I think the author handles it really well and everything feels very consensual. Nothing at all feels like power imbalance. And the relationships are all very respectful. I feel like she handles that gray area kind of well. But they go to this foreign nation run by the Shark King. Hello. And we watch the story unfold from there, and we do end up seeing the conflict at the beginning overarches and resolves at the end. While we're in this new place, there's a bit of a conspiracy that we get to follow. Our main character, it turns out she might have magic, and so we learn about that because she's like, I don't think I have magic. I think everyone's lying. And just the romance is so slow burn. Oh, it is chef's kiss. Oh my God. I was like hooked on this thing. I had a really busy week leading up to the book club. And so my Kindle was like, you have 8 hours left. And so the book club was Saturday. And so Friday after work, I laid in bed with my Kindle arm attachment and my little clicker remote. And I laid in bed under my blanket, supine for 8 hours reading that book. My eyes were stuck on the screen. It was so good. Another really great element of this book is the friendships. The friendships are amazing. They are so sweet and so tender. And I do think that there is a bit of a found family as well, because the women get into a situation of it's just kind of like, this is our home now. This is our life now. We've got to figure out how to make do. And I just had so much fun with this book. And I have a show and tell because at this book club I go to, we do a craft. And so I have my crafts. So one of the magic-y things that happens has to do with hagstones. And so the host was like, I thought we could all make hagstones. And then I was like, what are we going to do with those? Let's make them magnets. And so then we made them, like, we made other magnets too. But I'll give you a little show and tell. So here's my hagstone magnet. Ooh, pretty. There's a pear on the cover because this nation, like, grows pears. So then I made a pear. Look at my pear. And then I made my cat. So here's macaroni as a magnet. And then just because I was feeling like it, I made Nosferatu. So there's my Nosferatu magnet. I'm so glad I have that. And you should read Priestess because this is an independent author, independently published. And I always think it's great to support smaller authors. So 100% check out Priestess. It was so, so good. Now we're on my top two. This was hard to pick, but I did it. My second best read of the month, coming in at a 5-star, is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, book 2 of the Farseer trilogy, a part of the Realm of the Elderlings. I can't say too much about the plot because it's a book 2. We follow Fitz Chivalry Farseer, who is the bastard son of Chivalry Farseer, the first in line to the throne. And because he's a bastard, he doesn't have the same rights or treatment as a true son or a true heir to a prince. And so he takes on more of an eclectic role and he gets trained as an assassin to the king. This is all information we learn in book 1. So in book 2, we see him continue that journey. He's older in this book. He's, I think, closer to 16 versus he starts at like 6 in book 1. Don't let that turn you off. The story is not in any way juvenile, even if the age of the character is young. And so he's a little older in this. He has more responsibilities, more duties, more relationships just with different parties, and he starts to have to balance all of that while the kingdom is in uproar around him. And that's all I'll tell you. I love this world. I love this story. And I that might be crazy to some people to say 2 books in to his 16-book series. But I do. It is just like every detail I'm obsessed with. I love Fitz. I love all of the character, not all of the characters. If you watch my most recent video, you'll know who I'm leaving out of that sentiment. So aside from one rodent in particular, I love all of the characters. I'm astounded with where the story goes, and I don't know, I keep expecting it to follow a really traditional narrative and it doesn't. And so I just love that it keeps surprising me. Like, you can see how much I just love this book. I love her writing. It's so immersive. And I love that both of the books I've read so far, Assassin's Apprentice and this, have been slow. It's made me just savor the story so much. I think in this day and age, it can be so easy to seek out what's going to give me the most stimulation possible, what's the fastest pace, what's going to hook me immediately. And so it was so refreshing to pick this in and just have a slow meander through this world. It gives you so much time to learn and understand and appreciate everything that goes on. I feel like I have such an innate understanding of why characters act the way they do, why the world functions the way it does, and it makes it just such a rich reading experience. I can't recommend this enough. I loved this book. My baby, Royal Assassin. On to my number 1 read of the month, probably going to be a top read of the year, and that is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. This is a literary science fiction cli-fi novel where we follow this family living on a teeny tiny island thousands of miles off the coast of, it's in Oceania. So it's not really, closest places maybe like New Zealand or Australia. And this island is a research base that houses the last seeds ever of millions of plant species. And this family, only people left on this island, all of the other researchers have left. And one day, a woman's body washes ashore. We follow kind of that. There are so many mysteries that open up in the first 25 to 40% of the book, and you get the answers to all of them. I was satisfied by all of the answers. This book just builds so much intrigue. And I thought that this book was phenomenal. It felt like Charlotte McConaghy bit off a lot and she chewed it all up. Stop eating my magnets. We have a immersive world and a phenomenal setting that she paints the picture of perfectly. I felt like I could picture every scene so clearly and every corner of the island so clearly. She gives us characters that we know to the bone. The writing was beautiful and magical, and it transported me. This book gave reflections on life, on grief, on desire, on like who deserves what in this life, and the plot. On top of it all, you have this phenomenal mystery plot, so many teeny tiny mysteries that all build up to one big mystery with one of the most cry inducing payoffs. I finished this book and I was like dry heave sobbing. Kenny, my fiance, was next to me and I was like, I don't remember the last time I cried this hard. And I cry a lot. I was like, okay, this is a lot. I need to cool it. I was weeping finishing this book. And I know not everyone feels as passionately about it as me. Phenomenal. I want to purchase this book. I want to reread it. I want to annotate it. Oh, Wild Dark Shore was so, so good. That is a wrap on the 12 books that I read in August. Look at that. Got into double digits and an average of 4.08. June and July are shaking. August was a phenomenal reading month. I already know September is going to be a great reading month as well. I'd love to know your best read of August or what you're looking forward to reading in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks. Bye.